What's cracking, ladies and gentlemen? 49 coming at you another community shoutcast for the OUSA Dota League Season 1. There might be a little bit of background noise as my flatmates are cooking in the living room. So we're just loading into game number 1 of Felffie and Friends up against See and Believe. I think this is the first time I've actually casted Felffie and Friends with their full roster, so it should be interesting to see what they're capable of. And so we're just loading in right now. Hang on a second. Gonna fiddle with my settings and enable open mic in case someone's listening on Dota TV. Okay, so we've got SMB led by the captain Dream up against Felffie and Friends, and it turns out Felffie and Friends' captain is just Felffie's friend, so Felffie's just a decoy or the mascot, one or the other. So we're just loading in right now, waiting on Dream. So I'm just going to quickly log into Steam before anything else happens, just so I don't receive messages during game. Few pings coming out. And so Felffie and Friends have first pick and first ban in this game. So it'll be interesting to see who they choose to ban out. I have noticed that it's been pretty standard so far for first and second bans during the ODL 1. Ember Spirit, Invoker, Slark, and Clockwork all seem to be pretty standard bans, with Timbersaw or Nature's Prophet also alternating in. So Felffie and Friends deliberating on their first ban. Should be pretty standard. I believe See and Believe have a fairly limited hero pool.
5 seconds remaining.
So it should be interesting to see if Felffie and Friends have done their homework. They're actually choosing to dip into their reserve time for their first ban, and we've got the first ban Invoker. Very strong, very standard ban. Offers a lot of versatility and teamfight capability, especially with the recent patch, increasing the damage of his Quas Wax spells. So with Cold Snap, Cold Ghost Walk, sorry, no longer triggering as slow on yourself, as well as the fact that EMP has been up to 550 money, albeit with a longer duration before it goes off. So it's gone up from
5 seconds remaining.
From 2 seconds to 2.6 seconds for procs, and Slark ban coming out immediately from See and Believe. They don't want to deal with the Shadow Dance, they don't want to have to deal with how annoying Slark is, especially with the amount of map control he provides. So second ban coming out from Felffie and Friends. It'll be interesting to see if they choose to ban out. Yeah, we've got the Ember Spirit. I was wondering if Felffie and Friends might let that through, since they have first pick, so they could always choose to open up the draft and pick it up first, but See and Believe immediately banning out Nature's Prophet. So two very strong heroes that you don't want to play against. Slark is a pretty self-explanatory ban. He could lane in any single situation. He could go mid, it's 1v1, offlane 1v1, or even 1v3. As with Pounce and Dark Pact, he's very hard to catch out of position and kill. All he has to do is leech EXP, get a few items, and then he can start to snowball from there. Or even as a trilane farmer, I believe in the best of 5 series with Alliance up against Na'Vi, they did just that with Loader farming up, getting a quick Skadi up on his trilane Slark, and then transitioning into, I believe it was a Molnir, using it to secure a win up against Na'Vi in game before. And so Felffie and Friends deliberating on their first pick. They do have heroes such as Clockwork and Timbersaw, who tend to be fairly common first picks so far in the ODL that are available. Usually you want to pick up an offlaner as one of your first picks, or a high tier support hero like the not the Crystal Maiden, like the Visage or the Ancient Apparition. Crystal Maiden has been first picked a fair few times, but she hasn't really been all too effective so far in the ODL. I think I've only casted one game where Crystal Maiden was on the winning team. And we've actually got a lot of disconnections happening. I don't know what's happening. This could potentially be a remake. I'm just going to quickly log back into Steam just to message the captain, see what's happening. My apologies. It turns out See and Believe were meant to have first pick, so I'm just going to quickly rehost that game. That's a bit embarrassing. Hang on just 1 second. So it's meant to be Radiant who had first pick and not Dire. My apologies. I'll keep the stream rolling, never mind. Shouldn't be too big of a deal. We've got everyone loading back in. Alright, so both captains are just agreeing to ban out the same heroes. They're both pretty standard bans anyway. Ember Spirit, Slark, the Invoker, as well as the Nature's Prophet. So just going to wait for the last few players over from See and Believe to load back in. I do apologize for that. It's always embarrassing when I accidentally screw up. Cool, so we're good to go. Loading back in. I did screw up the lobby the first time. I believe the first time I made a lobby I accidentally made it all pick into the captain's modes. There's all sorts of things like that that I sometimes screw up on. And so just to quickly go over the first and second bans for both teams, it was the Invoker followed by the Ember Spirit for Felffie and friends, and Slark followed by the Nature's Prophet for See and Believe. All pretty standard bans. Just going to log back out of Steam now that we're in the game. And so yeah, I did find it interesting that Felffie's friend is actually the captain for Team Felffie and Friends. You'd think it'd be called Felffie's friend and friends then, but maybe they just preferred Felffie as the name.
Radiant team ban.
So just going to quickly shoot back through the bans. Slark, Invoker, Ember Spirit, and then the Nature's Prophet for See and Believe.
Radiant team ban.
With Felffie and friends deliberating on their first pick. See and Believe have the first
Radiant
pick.
team pick.
So it should be interesting to see they pick up, and they go for the Ancient Apparition, the second king of the trilane, up there with the Visage, just with the fact that Chilling Touch provides so much burst damage during the laning phase. As with all three heroes, they're all receiving 50 damage each, so if all three heroes right-click one guy once, it's an extra 150 magic damage coming his way. It's incredibly potent up against heroes with high base armor, such as the Naga Siren in the trilane situation, or heroes that are tanky, really tanky to bring down originally, such as Bristleback or the Centaur Warrunner, both of which are pretty common offlaners. So Felffie and friends deliberating their first and second pick. They see the Ancient Apparition, who relies, like the Visage, they're very powerful heroes, but that's assuming you can play them effectively, so they go for the Visage, countering the Trilane King with another Trilane King. Felffie and friends actually have some of the best coordination I've seen so far in the ODL1, off of what I hear. I believe it was Flash from Team Blink telling me that Felffie and friends are actually the only team that have been in the Trilane v Trilane situation. And so I'm looking forward to seeing the coordination coming up from them, especially with their full roster. The last time I casted, they had two stand-ins. One of them was Vito Corleone, who played an absolutely unstoppable Invoker, completely destroyed the opposing team.
10 seconds remaining.
And second pick coming out from Felffie and friends there. Looks like they're going to dip into the reserve time for that. Both teams have chosen to go for a support hero as their Trilane support hero.
Reserve time.
And so dipping into the reserve time, most likely you might want to pick up either a mid hero or an offlaner. Mid hero is a bit more temperamental just because most mid heroes do have plenty of counter picks to go against them, so you generally want to pick them third or fourth.
Disruptor.
And Disruptor picked up. Felffie and friends, they do love the Disruptor trilane. Disruptor offers a lot, especially with the recent patch buffing the cast range for his glimpse. It's now 600 at level 1 and 1000 at level 2. Incredibly powerful ability, just because if a single hero is called out of position, you can zip them back and then give time for the rest of your team to beat them down. Visage is considered the king of the trilane just because he offers so much in terms of offensive capability, very little defensively, apart from the fact that if you do go on them, if you ignore Visage, you'll be the threat of your Soul Assumption and Grave Chills. So in that sense, his offense becomes his defense.
5 seconds
Grave Chills is an excellent ability to help set up other heroes, especially those who have either abilities that require setup, such as Disruptor's Kinetic Field, the Lena's Light Strike Array, the Podem Arrow, abilities like that, or to enable short-range heroes to get into range, such as the Vengeful Spirit with a 500 range magic missile, or the Shadow Shaman with his Shackle or his Hex. Visage is a great enabler in that sense, as well as the fact that while he doesn't provide any disables of his own until he gets birds, he provides so much damage that you generally don't need any hard CC. Team Blink are notorious for doing this, they just rely on snares and silencers, and just relying on the sheer amount of damage output coming out from their side. We've got Silencer picked up. A very flexible hero. He can go 1v1 in an offlane situation. He could go 1v1 mid. He actually destroys a lot of unconventional mids you've been seeing a lot of play, such as the Viper. As Viper has no way to actually cancel his Curse of the Silent or his last word, so he's forced to eat the disarm as well as the dot the entire time.
5 seconds remaining.
Also is quite strong in a trilane situation. He could run either as a support hero. In that case, he could offer out support through his last word as well as the Glaive Harass. Or he can hang around as the safe lane farmer, as Silencer does scale pretty well into the game. He's a great hero to rush in early mechons, it gives him a lot of survivability, then build towards something like a 4-star. The advantage of Silencer as a carry, especially in the trilane situation, is the fact that since there'll be a lot of kills happening, especially if you clash try v try, Silencer will be passively gaining damage through his intelligence deal, which is now innate in the hero, so you no longer have to level Glaives of Wisdom. However, you usually do want 1 point in it, just because it enables you to be able to orb walk and use that to harass the enemy hero without drawing creep aggro yourself.
Reserve time.
Felffie and friends dipping into reserve time once again. They've been thrown a bit by the Silencer pickup. They don't know what lane he's going into. Most likely will be either mid or the tri-lane, but even the tri-lane, he could fit as a support hero or the farmer. Although Ancient Apparition and Silencer isn't the greatest support duo just because they don't have any hard lockdown. If Ancient Apparition chooses to max Cold Feet, they've got no way to set up the Cold Feet, so whatever hero he Cold Feets can just walk away. Whereas if he's functioning as the carry, Ancient Apparition can buff him and provide a lot of damage, but that means that they need another support hero with a long initiation range, and preferably with some kind of hard disable. So we could be seeing something perhaps like Vengeful Spirit wouldn't be terrible. Naga Siren would work very well just because they already have enough damage output coming up from them, so the long range of the ensnare, as well as the fact that it lasts for 2 seconds at level 1, can help pin them in place while the other heroes go to town on them. We see and Believe banning out the Doombringer and the Luna. Doombringer can be used either on a trilane. He could go mid, or he could even go off lane 1v1. He can do 1v3 if you play very cautiously and start with boots. Well, it's not really the ideal situation for him. The reason why Doombringer works so well, similar to the Nature's Prophet, he's able to get a huge gold lead through his Devourer. Or similar to how Nature's Prophet can generate a gold lead by pulling back the creep wave to right in front of the tower, or once he gets level 6 with his Wrath of Nature. Once he picks up an early Midas, he can get the ball rolling, get a lot of high tier items quickly, such as the Assault Cuirass for the rest of his team. Doombringer also works very well as a support or utility hero. If he goes for something in the Arcane Boots, he could get something like a 7-minute mech if he just chooses to rush it. Pick up Arcane Boots, maybe pick up something like a Shiva's Guard, or the 4-star for the rest of your team. But usually you do want Doom to transition to a right-clicking hero, just because of the fact that he could eat the Alpha Wolf, so that gives him a free 30% damage aura, as well as the inbuilt 2x crit.
Team pick.
And Luna, incredibly powerful trilane hero, especially with the Visage and the Disruptor both in the field. Visage gives Luna time to beat down her opponents with a Grave Chill. Luna has extremely high engagement range with a Lucent Beam, 800 range, also has a 0.6 second stun, and Disruptor can always zip them back in to finish them off in case they don't kill them the first round, as well as the fact that Thunder Strike provides vision, enabling Luna to be able to nuke them down with her high mobility and with the Lucent Beam. Third and fourth band coming out from Felffie and friends, we've got the Venomancer, which would be an excellent hero in conjunction with the Ancient Apparition, just because Venomous Gale has a high range, 700, and also enables the Cold Feet to proc. Nyx Assassin, also very standard, incredibly strong hero, especially against squishy intelligent support heroes like the Visage, who only has 15% magic resistance and 0 armor until he starts getting points up in the Gravekeeper's Cloak, or the Disruptor, who can't do anything against Nyx Assassin if he catches him alone. Bristleback picked up from Felffie and friends, most likely will be going into the offlane. Bristleback, an incredibly powerful offlane hero, just because he's incredibly difficult to dislodge. Every time you deal damage to him with the Quill Spray, he could trade and return damage back to you, and because of his innate tankiness through his high stats and EHP at level 1, as well as the Bristleback passive, he forces you to dive him, so long as he plays safe. And if you dive a Bristleback, you're eating Quill Sprays to the face if another hero rotates in, or if you actually misplay and underestimate how much damage you're taking from the quills, you can turn around and always make it a trade. Lycan picked up as the carry for Felffie and friends. Very strong hero, especially with that Death Ball push power, unlike the Lone Druid who serves a similar role in that split pushing, split farming capability. Lycan takes off a lot earlier, especially with the recent buff to his wolves, so they now have that innate regeneration. Will be interesting to see if Lycan chooses to go for that early points in hell, or if he just chooses to go for Feral Impulse during the laning phases. I know Flash actually chooses to skill Feral Impulse at level 1, as level 1 wolves are actually quite useless, and so it's better just to have the increased base attack damage and attack speed to help you CS. Mirana picked up from See and Believe, so looks like it could be a Mirana trilane. She can go mid or off lane, but with the Silencer pickup, I'm assuming Silencer will be going mid, and we've got a Sven pickup, so it could be an off lane Mirana. A Sven trilane with the Silencer and the Ancient Apparition, or Silencer could go mid. See and Believe actually have a very flexible lineup right now. The only thing for certain that you know is that Ancient Apparition and Sven will be laning together, as Sven is a safe lane farming hero, and he does need a decent amount of farm before he starts to pick up. And Ancient Apparition can't really do anything mid or in the off lane. He used to be very popular as a solo and mid hero back in the TI1 stage. That was due to the fact that there weren't all too many mid heroes back then, and a lot of the common mid heroes now, such as the Puck, were actually completely different to what they were back in TI1. I think there's a lot of issues with Puck. With Puck, he didn't quite feel the same in terms of his animation point for his phase shift. Batrider was exactly the same. His turn rate, as well as the sticky napalms not initially providing the number debuff, meant that they played completely differently, and they weren't just quite the same. And so those mechanical differences were eventually fixed through bug fixes, but until then, they weren't picked up for one of those reasons, and so Ancient Apparition was quite a strong mid-hero back in that stage. Sven has received a significant buff in the latest patch. His base armor is now 5, so that gives him a lot more survivability. Interesting to see that they've gone for the Sven, especially against a carry like a Lycan,
5 seconds remaining,
who is kind of counterintuitive to this Sven pick, just because he wants to engage early. He wants to take as many towers as he can and start to snowball from that lead. Sven as a hard carry works, but he does need a reasonable amount of farm, as he needs levels as well, both in the Warcry so he could stand toe-to-toe in man fight, as well as in the Cleave so he could output AoE damage. The issue with Sven is he's slow and he's melee, and so his time on target is terrible until he picks up something like a BKB, a Blink Dagger, or a Mask of Madness, or a combination of the above. It's very difficult for him to hold people in place and beat them down. As outside of Sven, they actually only have one other way to lock people in place, and that's the Mirana Error, and that's pretty unreliable. Ancient Apparition's Cold Feet can be considered completely unreliable, just as they don't have another ability to set it up. They've got two unreliable stuns, they've got Sven's Stormbolt, which can be used to hold people in place. But the issue with that is, especially against heroes like Visage, you could Grave Chill the Sven before he gets up in your face. The Disruptor could glimpse you back or drop that kinetic field, or you'll be engaging on Lycan, who has Shapeshift and max movement speed, or the Bristleback, who is more than happy to turn around and tank those quills and throw those quills back onto your face. So we've got Darkseer as the 5th ban, as well as Death Prophet. Death Prophet, an incredibly good ban in this scenario, just because you've got the Lycanthrope pickup, so you know they're going for an early push strat. Felffie and friends gave away the purpose of their draft with that Lycanthrope pick, as when you pick up a hero like a Lycan, you don't want to go to the ultra late game. You're not looking to secure the late game at all. You want to end the game during the mid game, or secure your team enough of an advantage that you could just out-carry that carry, just with the sheer amount of items that you have on your team. It will be interesting to see if Lycan goes for the conventional carry build, or most likely will be going for the Zoo build, so building that Necro 3 as fast as possible, comboing it with the Vladimir's Offering and maybe a Medallion of Courage. I've got Dragon Knight picked up, once again, a very strong
team pick.
Pushing hero. Dragon Knight isn't the greatest mid hero in the game. He has received significant nerfs with the fact that Bottle Crowing has been nerfed, which was the reason why Dragon Knight was picked as a mid hero to begin with. It's the fact that with Breed Fire, it offers you excellent lane control, as it enables you to farm and harass the enemy hero at the same time on a fairly low cooldown. The fact that you could Bottle Crow meant that, similar to a Magnus mid, all you had to do was throw out your Q, use it to drive back the enemy hero while securing CS, grab runes when you can, and then use that advantage to drive them out of lane or to kill them, with the recent buff to Dragon Tail having 400 range in EDF. He actually does have a fair amount of solo killing potential at level 6, especially if he catches the enemy mid unprepared, and if he kills them, or if he drives them out of lane, or hell, if the other mid hero even rotates, Dragon Knight at level 6 with EDF 1 will be to take all your towers, and that's the reason why he's so difficult to deal with. However, against another dominating mid hero, looks like we might actually see a Kunkka mid. Yeah, Dream is their mid player, so it'll be a Kunkka mid, so a melee mid matchup. And looks like an Ancient Apparition silences Sven trilane. So Tlaloc, the carry player for See and Believe. Jimmy Whispers, I think he might be the offlaner, as he would be the most logical choice for the offlane, just because Ancient Apparition or Silencer don't work out too well. So it'll be interesting to see the support Silencer at work, especially if they do decide to clash try. The advantage that See and Believe have is the fact that Lycan actually doesn't contribute anything in the laning phase, aside from right clicks and his wolves, which are handy, but they aren't really considered to be all too reliable. Just because Felffie and friends don't have an awful lot of lockdown to enable Lycanthrope or his wolves to get right clicks in. Whereas See and Believe, they have a lot higher burst damage. You've got the Stormbolt coming out from the Sven to initiate, Ancient Apparition to follow up with the Chilling Touch, as well as the Cold Feet. Will be interesting to see if he chooses to go for Cold Feet or the Chilling Touch. He hasn't skilled either yet, so he's holding on to his skill points. And so just going to quickly introduce the players over on both sides. Felffie's friend, their captain, playing that Disruptor, road to 2.5k MMR, the support player over in the Visage. Felffie, the mascot, not the captain, which is a bit surprising over in the Lycanthrope as the safe lane carry. Looks like he chose to go Wolves at level 1, disregarding Flash's build of Feral Impulse. AO, the offlaner, up on that Bristleback. And play Laugh Grow as their mid player over on the Dragon Knight, choosing not to get pulled any tangos or to rush that bottle. He's actually picked up a significant amount of stat items. I guess the assumption behind that is the fact that he's up against another melee mid hero, so it would be a bit of an easier mid in comparison to if he had a ranged hero, in which case you need to get bottle as soon as possible just to start spamming out Fire Breath. When you're up against another melee hero like the Kunkka, you might actually want to go for a few more stats just so you can CS better. Kunkka in the middle lane being played by Dream, captain of See and Believe. Actually choosing to start with a Blades of Attack. This is a very interesting build. I'm not 100% certain on the rationale behind that. I guess it does give him a bit more damage to help him with CSing. And there's another thing to keep in mind is Quelling Blade on Kunkka actually doesn't work with the Tidebringer, so the Tidebringer damage isn't multiplied by the Quelling Blade. In Dota 1 it didn't work at all. This is something they've introduced in Dota 2, just because of the way the mechanics work in Dota 1 compared to Dota 2. So it looks like he'll be going for the Phase Boots build. Most likely will be choosing to rush that Shadow Blade, just because it offers him a lot of teamfight, splash damage, and solo ganking potential. And yeah, we're clashing try v try. We've got Stranger Danger over into Spawn Ancient Apparition. Jimmy Whispers actually on the Mirana, so it looks like we've got an offlane Sven going 1v1 up against the Bristleback. In that case, I'd have to most definitely give the advantage to the Bristleback, unless if Sven does play intelligently. No, he hasn't started with a magic stick, and so Bristleback should have a fairly easy lane. With the Quill Spray, as well as his superior base damage and attack animation, he should be able to out CS the Sven while simultaneously driving him out of lane. With the support players from Felffie and friends hanging back, using Lycanthrope to bait forward. Kind of interesting to see how they chose to not have Mirana go 1v1 up against the Bristleback. I guess the rationale behind that is Bristleback does beat Mirana in 1v1 just because he has better base damage and he has the Quill Spray. Bristleback actually choosing to scale Nasal Goo at level 1. It's surprising considering the fact that Quill Spray at level 1 probably would have been a bit more effective, as Sven hasn't picked up his magic stick yet. He actually picked it up on the courier instead of getting it at the side shop. Could have been a bit of a misclick there. Slight lag spike. Actually, I'm just going to plug in the Ethernet cable. Should have done this from the start. Probably should help out, especially with the rest of my flatmates using the internet. And Playlove Grode choosing not to skill Flame Breath at level 1, going for Dragon Tail and Dragon's Blood. I heartily disagree with this build. When you send Dragon Knight mid, or if he's a solo hero in general, you almost always want to skill Fire Breath, just because that's your only lane control ability. Dragon Tail is nice if you get ganked or dove under a tower, but at level 1 it actually offers you very little, especially in the 1v1 matchup. I guess he could stun Kunkka and hit him a few times, but you could accomplish the exact same thing while getting CS using your Breathe Fire. So he's getting bullied and controlled out of the lane by Kunkka, who's leading at 9 for 2, so that Blades of Attack at level 1 pickup actually turning to do a lot of work. With that Tidebringer Harass, he's actually doing a significant amount of damage to Dragon Knight. Drops the torrent, but the torrent actually misses, but he doesn't really mind. He's got free harassment coming out from the Tidebringer. And it looks like Kunkka is going to be going for the Chinese Kunkka build, which is you get 2 points up in torrent as soon as possible, just to ensure that you can always land your torrent. And so after that you choose to max out your Tidebringer, and you max out your Q last. Yeah, it looks like Visage got a solo kill got a kill against the Stranger Danger and the Ancient Apparition. Caught out of position from the look of it. Grave Chill with Soul Assumption, followed up by the Kinetic Field. Or was that Glimpse? Yeah, Kinetic Field and the Thunderstrike. Pretty standard. Surprised that Jimmy Whispers wasn't able to provide a covering fire arrow, but I guess the Lycanthrope Wolves can always block that. It's one of the advantages of having Lycan as your safe lane hero. And he's gone for a point up in Wolves, so that just further increases the amount of damage that's happening. Haste Rune spawning in the top lane. Lycanthrope picks up a Sage's Mask, which isn't the greatest pickup on him, just because he has such terrible intelligence growth. But most likely will be going for that Medallion of Courage with that Sage's Mask build. He could choose to always opt for an early Vladimir's Offering, but when you're in a situation where you want to output damage, Medallion of Courage actually helps you farm faster, as it increases the DPS that you do on single targets when you jungle. And especially with the fact that your wolves now have passive regeneration, so they don't necessarily need the lifesteal. It still is nice, but as well as the fact that you can't actually Roshan just with Vladimir's. You want both Vladimir's Offering and the Medallion of Courage. It's very slow otherwise. And it is quite telling, as the enemy team already knows that when there's a Lycanthrope in the field, you got to be careful for Roshan. Dream dominating Dragon Knight with 20 for 4. This Kunkka counterpick actually is punishing Play, Laugh, and Grow, especially with the fact that he's been playing so passively, choosing to go for his Dragon Sun and his Dragon Blood at level 1 and 2, instead of going for those points up in Fire Breath. He's bottle crowing now, but I think it's too little too late. With Dragon Knight, you want to play as aggressively as possible from the get-go, just to bully them on the lane while you can, before they start to right-click you down. Howl's been dropped to counteract the Curse of the Silence. Interesting to see that Silencer hasn't gone for a point up in his glaives yet. Would have liked to see a point up in his glaives, especially considering the fact Arrow flies up and misses. The fact that enables him to get free harassment up on Felffie, who's actually just hanging around on his own right now. The supports aren't around. They didn't block the pull camp, but they went for that safety wall instead, which is much better. So they know that the support players on Felffie and friends actually aren't around. So would like to see and Believe playing really aggressive up on this Lycan right now. He's actually completely alone, and the Radiant side are aware of this. If they catch Lycan out, follow up with just a few right clicks, or even just get a bit of harassment on him. And we've got support rotation coming out. Silencer picks up the Haste Rune, but there isn't all too much he could really do. Dream actually went up top saying, hey, mate, maybe I wanted that. He doesn't have his bottle. He went for early phase boost, just give him more damage and more chasing power so he could really harass Dragon Knight out of lane. Dragon Knight goes for the rune bottom, but it didn't spawn. Didn't have wards there to start it out, so he actually wasted his time. He was almost going to hit level 6, so with EDF he could at least attempt to go for a kill attempt over on the Kunkka. Kunkka's been pretty low. Breathe Fire has been keeping him fairly low, and that's one of the advantages of the Dragon Knight and the mid matchup. Is he's able to break even and actually drive some heroes on the lane just through sheer Fire Breath harassment. One thing to keep in mind with Kunkka is while he does have a fairly high HP pool, and actually Roach 2.5 hit MMR, catches an arrow to the face. Looks like he'll be going down with one last right click with a chilling touch from Stranger Danger. He gets a bit of revenge. He said, "You killed me first, but I kill you second." Looks like he's going to be choosing to max out Chilling Touch. He's gone for one in all of his abilities right now. But seeing as how Chilling Touch isn't all too effective as a one-point wonder in comparison to the Ice Vortex or even to the Cold Touch, it still provides that stun at level 1. The stun does get better, but maxing out Chilling Touch provides more AoE damage to the rest of your team. Sven going for a pretty standard build, choosing to actually go for a point up in his cleave. It's indicative of the fact that he wants to go more for a farming build, as otherwise you want to either pick up a point in stats on Sven or even choose to max out your Warcry. Warcry also has been significantly buffed to increase the amount of armor it gives you. We've actually got Dream being driven out of the lane with that Fire Breath harassment coming up from the Dragon Knight. So even though he is pretty far behind the CS, it was originally being zoned out. Dragon Knight's coming back into it. He's almost got his Treads flying up. He's popped EDF 1, so he could have possibly gone for a gank attempt there, or with the corrosive poison coming out from it. Very easy for him to zone out a melee hero. Play Laugh Grow, picks up an illusion rune, so he's very happy with that. His EDF is about to wear off though, so he isn't able to accomplish all too much damage on that tower. Tower actually hasn't been scratched, hasn't been touched at all, doesn't have so much as a scratch on it. Sven hanging around, he chose wisely to upgrade his magic wand as soon as possible. He isn't actually getting all too much farm. Bristleback is completely dominating the lane, has double the CS he does, but it's difficult for Bristleback to go for a kill attempt on the Sven when he has the wand. Would like to see him be a bit more conservative with his wand charges, just in case if Bristleback does choose to dive him. That point in Nasal Goo early on means that he can actually chase down, and it gives Bristleback a lot of killing power against the Sven. We've got a disconnection coming up from the Mirana, we've got a pause coming out immediately from Felffie and friends. Great sportsmanship coming out from them. I believe they waited something like 15 to 20 minutes for Bambi from Bambi Rising to run out of the Net Cafe, which had just closed during one of their games, run back over to a mate's house, plug in, set up his computer, and then continue playing. Even though that ultimately did cost them the game. Mirana has reconnected. Ancient Apparitions roaming over bot. With this Sven Stormbolt, coupled with a Chilling Touch, and maybe if the Cold Feet lands, they could attempt to go for a kill on Bristleback. Well, Bristleback with level 4 Quill Spray, as well as his Warpath up. I don't think this is a wise move. In fact, Sven might actually go down to this if they even go on Bristleback, just because they don't have enough damage to bring him down. And his back is turned. Bristleback has the Ring of Health, no Stout Shield, he doesn't need it against another melee hero, as well as the Ring of Basilius, so he's in a pretty good spot. He'll be looking to get that Vanguard ASAP with that Ring of Health pickup. Would have liked to see the Vanguard maybe in about the next 2 or 3 minutes, but most of them won't be happening. Silencer gets caught up with a Grave Shield, eaten up with the Wolf. Arrow lands a 4.5k MMR, but he drops the Soul Assumption. Finishing off the Silencer, and great plays coming out. You see the power of the Howl out there, as it gave 20 damage to all 3 heroes. And so it's a ghetto version of the Chilling Touch. It doesn't provide any fancy magic damage, but it still does give you a significant boost of damage. And it looks like Lycan's gone for 1 point up in that Feral Impulse. It's 15% base attack and 15% attack speed at level 1. Feral Impulse is one of the best steroids in the game because it provides not only attack speed but also damage and propagates to your minions. It's the reason why the Zookeeper Lycan build has become so popular.
Radiant structures are
Necrobook
fortified.
3,
Don't waste time hitting
and
them.
your Wolves actually
Radiant's top
output a
tower
surprising
is
amount of
under
DPS,
attack.
just with the fact that Necrobook minions had 1 base attack time. Lycanthrope, in contrast, is 1.7 in regular mode, 1.55, but he's in odd form. Stormbolt flies up, but Quill Spray is immediately dropped. Cold Feet isn't going to proc. AO can actually turn around, perhaps go for a kill and span if he gets it late. Yeah, he turns around, throws out the goo. Stranger Danger has no mana, but Bristleback isn't aware of this. Never mind, he's turning around. He's going over on Tarlock. He actually turned around and tanked that Stormbolt in the face. He's going to survive. Play Lafra rotates in, throws out the 400 range Dragon Tail. He's going to get a kill on Stranger Danger, especially with that haste ring that he picked up. Great rotation coming out from Felffie and friends, and able to secure 2 kills for the price of none. On the top lane, Felffie is duking on that tower. He's got his Wolves up, and will be able to use them to push them down. He also has Shapeshift. Looks like he's going for that Vladimir's Offering build. Doesn't want that DPS from the Medallion. Doesn't want that farming or ganking capability. He actually pops his Shapeshift to drive Jimmy Whispers out of lane, as well as the Silencer. Silencer actually gets the deny, but he might pay for it with his life. With Shapeshift up, he's just going to get right-clicked down. Soul Assumption catches him on the back end and finishes him off. Jimmy Whispers didn't have mana to throw out an arrow. All he could do is leap away. So he's there to sit there and watch. While Lycanthrope runs up, says, "I'm the Alpha Wolf," and right-clicks him down. Drums picked up on Kunkka. Would like to see him transition towards that Shadow Blade now. Drums and Phase and Drums are great pickups on Kunkka, as it gives him everything he really needs. Kunkka has very low agility growth, so that's one of the reasons why he tapers off as a late game carry. It means he has low armor and pretty low attack speed. He relies on the sheer amount of burst damage coming out from his spells, as well as his Tidebringer hit, and that's one of the reasons why Shadow Blade works so well with him, as it gives him that guaranteed 150 extra damage cleave on the entire team. And once you pick up something like a Chrysalis or a Daedalus, if that extra 150 crits, you're dealing a hell of a lot of damage to the enemy team. If you're able to land your boat as well, it just gets also much more dangerous. Chosen to go for a second point up in Torrent instead of maxing out Tidebringer, which is surprising, considering the fact that as Kunkka, you usually want to max out your Tidebringer as soon as you can, once you've gotten those 2 points up in the X marks the spot. Rotation spotted out by an excellent ward placed by the Dire side, because the rationale behind maxing out Tidebringer as soon as possible is that also, not only does it increase the damage, it decreases the cooldown, so it means you'll be able to get more than one Tidebringer head off during a gank or engagement, or even 3. I think it has something like a 4-second cooldown. He's getting caught out by the Thunderstrike, but with no glimpse and pull him back, he wasn't too far forward to get glimpse back. Disruptor almost has a max glimp, and he has a static storm now. Road to 2.5k MMR, actually a lot behind in terms of EXP in contrast. I guess it's because he was hanging around the lane, while Felffie's friend was the one who was pulling and stacking the neutrals. He wants to hit level 6 as soon as possible. Visage has gone for Arcane Boots, so he's been having a good game. He's got 3 kills over in Felffie and friends. He's currently securing the early game for them. Ghost Boat drops, he's caught up with a stun. Dream's also caught into the Connect field, but that's going to be wearing off real soon. Eats a Soul Assumption to the face, but didn't do enough damage, especially with the Cocoa Rum. Mitigates half of all damage Kunkka takes. He turns around for one last right click on road to 2.5k MMR. Curse of the Sun unfortunately misses, would have killed Visage. Arrow flies out. Never mind. Road to 2.5k MMR. Scouted out the Mirana, moving him for the arrow, so he wisely backed away before he was caught out. And that's a 1 for nothing with the Ghost Boat drop. One of the things to keep in mind with Kunkka's Ghost Boat is even if it doesn't land, even if it completely whiffs, if it goes through your team, it mitigates 50% of damage that they take while the Cocoa Rum buff is up. That damage will be dealt at the ends of the boat buff duration, which is I think 6, 7, 8 seconds, and it's non-lethal damage. So especially against 8 seconds, never mind. So especially against burst damage heroes like the Nyx Assassin, if you engage on someone with Cocoa Rum, you're not going to do anything to them. You're just going to piss them off. Sven pops his ult, but the Visage Familiars are up. Familiars actually taking a lot of damage, but one drops, and the second boat's going to drop. And actually, he feeds one of the Familiars, but he gets that drop anyway. You never want to feed your Familiars just because the cooldown is so goddamn long. 2 minutes and 40 seconds are on cooldown now for the Visage. So he's got 130 more seconds, but he has 2 birds. He's got 1 bird though, so it's not the end of the world. He still has that stun scouting capability coming up from him. Scouts out the double damage rune over in the top lane. Just going to do a quick gold in the XP check while there's not too much action happening.
And I don't mean in love.
5,000 EXP lead in favor of Felffie and friends, and over 5,000 gold lead. That's due to the fact that they've taken 2 towers. One was denied, but they do have one over the bottom lane, as well as the CS efficiency and the 5 kill lead they have. In terms of EXP, that's mostly due to the kills. The trilane completely failed. It didn't really accomplish too much. Lycan wasn't punished even when the supports rotated over. They're moving over to try to punish him now, but once Lycan gets level 6, it's very difficult to gank him, as whenever he has shapeshift up, he has a free haste rune. He's going for that Medallion of Courage now, choosing to go for Tread before he does so. Usually Lycanthrope players don't upgrade boots at all. You stick with your naked boots because you get all the attack speed you need from Feral Impulse, and items like the Medallion of Courage and the Necro Book, they're timing specific items. The faster you get them, the more dangerous they are, so naturally you want to get them as soon as possible. The 950 gold you spent upgrading your treads could have been spent on almost finishing off your Medallion of Courage, which is 1,075 gold, or building towards your Necro Book, which is 2,300 at level 1. 2,700, sorry, at level 1. Flylock is safe with that Moonlight Shadow. Arrow flies out, never mind, that's the X marks the spot, as well as the Torrent. Ghost Boat also drops. Ayo might have gone too far forward, the boat misses, but he catches the Stormbolt in the back of the head. He's running like hell, popping the Quill Spray. Drums has been popped. They really want this kill. With the Chilling Touch as well as the Tidebringer, that's a lot of extra damage coming out the Kunkka, and he's able to right-click him down. Bristleback takes a fall, perhaps engaged a bit too far. Underestimated the rotations coming out from S&B. They're able to punish that. Looks like he's going for a Hooded Defiance as his first big item, so he wants to build a pipe. Not the biggest fan of this build, as you always want to build Mechanism before you build a pipe, as pipe is effectively a defective mechanism. The one benefit it provides you compared to mech is that you can use it on your creep wave when you're pushing high ground, so that your creeps don't get nuked down before they reach high ground. Otherwise, the 400 magic damage it mitigates it's unmitigated magic damage, so it's not including the 25% base magic resistance you have. So 400 points of magic damage will cause it to pop. So it means it's actually giving you less EHP than the mech for an increased cost. If you have both, that's absolutely fine, but you want to always get mech up as soon as possible. Mech's also a great pickup on Bristleback, because it gives him so much more EHP. It gives him the +5 armor from the buckler, which drastically increases Bristleback's survivability against physical right clicks, and that burst heal is always nice, especially on a hero like a Bristleback, who's going to take a while to die. It ensures that he can always get it off. Ice Blast flies out, gonna clip too, never mind, it actually misses on everybody. Bit of miscommunication flying out there. Ghost Boat flies out. It's gonna hit too. That's a lot of damage dropped out with the Ghost Boat. Silencer moves a bit too far forward. Eats a Soul Slam to the face. Static Storms drop. The Familiars are beating on him, and he's gonna take a fall. Thunder Strike as well as the Static Storm are able to deal enough DPS to finish off the Silencer. Arrow flies up from Jimmy Whispers, completely whiffs. And Lycan, during all this, is just going for Roshan. He's got that Medallion of Courage. He's microing his wolves so they don't take too much damage, especially with the fact that they have passive regeneration now, coupled with the Vladimir's offering, means they actually do a surprising amount of DPS, especially with the fact that wolves have an inbuilt crit. Choosing to max out Feral Impulse now, just wanted that 1 point in the Howl. That's pretty justifiable. Howl scales fairly poorly, only an extra 10 damage with each additional level compared to the 20 that level 1 gives you. They're picking out the bottom tower. They want to go for this. AO's hanging around. With that Hold of Defiance, it hasn't really been the best pickup. Stormbolt flies out. Not too sure who that actually hit. Maybe he was using it to farm. From the look of it, yeah, he was using it to farm. Choosing to go for more points in Nasal Goon instead of maxing out his Bristleback. I guess it's because he knows that this team's going to be fighting more. Silencer choosing to max out Curse of the Silence with no points up in the Glaives of Wisdom. This is definitely a mistake.
That's got to hurt.
He should have recognized it, especially with the fact that you have heroes who have cheap, easy to spam abilities. Dragon Knight with his Breed Fire, since he's been bottle crowing and has high levels. Disruptor, he could throw out his Kinetic Field, doesn't cost him all too much mana. Isn't an essential ability, it's nice, but it's not crucial for ganks. And looks like Jimmy Whispers pops a Moonlight Shadow. No Dust Sentry has been dropped by Disruptor. He's got Glimpse up, so he can always glimpse him back if Jimmy Whispers runs away. But excellent Kinetic Field, and he's caught out with one last Breed Fire coming out from Play Laugh Grow. The issue with choosing to max out Curse of the Silence is your secondary ability, especially against this lineup, is the fact that Lycan can howl, Dragon Knight can pop out his Breed Fire, Visage can simply Grave Chill a creep if he absolutely has to. Play Laugh Grow is going to get called out of position, going to eat the bow to the face, misses the Torrent though, is disarmed, which is much more significant. Silencer doesn't have level 6, so until he hits 6, teamfight power coming out from Felffie and friends is vastly superior. Eating a lot of damage, might actually go down to the Shadow, never mind. Shadow misses, just hits Felffie's friend. He's been clipped by it, but he hasn't taken enough damage for himself to go down.
Bottom tower was always the weakest tower.
Bird drops, making sure he doesn't go down. Sven pops his Warcry. Tlaloc hasn't been too effective. He's glimpsed back, and he's going to take a full Static Storm as well as Kinetic Field. Caught up by the Dragon Tail, and one last Breed Fire. Dragon Knight burns him down. Level 2 EDF, he's in a great position. He's got his BKB up. Great early Death Ball push on him, as they know that with that Lycanthrope, their carry comes online faster than the carry from SMB does, so they're going to push the advantage while they can. They have Aegis the Immortal up. Any fight they choose to take is in the bag for them. Would like to see a mech picked up, but 4-staff is almost caught finished on Disruptor. Dragon Knight eats an arrow to the face, is actually going to eat a nice blast to the face as well. Road to 2.5k MMR, has to be worried. If he takes a bit too much damage, he will pop instantly. Dream is the saving grace for his team right now. He's going for crit over Shadowblade. Not 100% certain on this build. The issue with going for not putting that Shadow Blade on the Kunkka is it doesn't give you that initial initiation ability to get that first hit off. As when you're running, while you're running up to them without a BKB, the support heroes over in the dire side can lock you in place. They can slow you with Grave Shield. They can nuke you down before you get there. With the Shadow Blade, it also gives you more solo ganking potential, as unless they have sentries preemptively placed to counteract you, you could just walk up, hit them, use that X-Master spot, use that torrent, and just right-click them down with the power coming out from the extra damage from Shadow Blade, as well as the attack speed, and the plus 60 on every 4 seconds coming up from your Tidebringer. Roshan will be reclaimed in 3 minutes, and so the dire side probably should try to force a fight while they can, keep the Radiant team down, especially considering the fact they've had such a poor start. Silencer Peg hasn't really worked out for them. He's actually fed 3 of their kills, so he's 33% of their deaths right now. He's just picked up his ultimate, which will give him significant team fighting capability, especially against the dire side, as if you are able to silence up the heroes before they can do anything, Disruptor and Visage just become range creeps. The Familiars can still drop. Lycanthrope does a decent amount of damage, but unless he shapeshifts before he ults, he's too slow to really be able to output all too much damage. And Dragon Knight's just a fat man in a can outside of his ultimate form, especially if he can't cast any abilities. That's the reason why heroes like Death Prophet are able to shut him down so well, as not only they could beat him in lane, unless he goes for a BKB, they could also beat him in the later stages just by locking him down with that silence. Pipe of Insight picked up by the Bristleback. Once again, would like to reiterate that the mechanism is almost always superior. The only times when you want to rush a Pipe of Insight on a hero like a Bristleback is if somebody else is already building that mech and has got it finished by the time you have the first few pieces, your Hood of Defiance finished. Otherwise, it's a pretty inefficient item pickup, and Dota's a game about small gains and small advantages. When you give those advantages away, you give the enemy team a window of opportunity to react. Lycanthrope has 3.8k, he hasn't spent his gold yet. Most likely will be going for that Necro Book, just because it offers you so much power, especially the earlier you get it, it's difficult for enemy heroes to deal with a level 3 Necro Book. Felffie's friend cops a 490 damage arrow to the face. Great play coming out from Jimmy Whispers. He's actually chosen to max out Arrow. Would have liked to see him max out Starstorm, especially in light of the fact that they know they're up against a pushing lineup with that Lycanthrope who's knocked down tier 2 and knocking on their door at tier 3. He says the wolf cometh. What you gonna do? He's backing away with Shapeshift. He knows he's fine, as well as that Aegis. Gravechill instantly dropped on the creep just to give Road to 2.5 KMR. Way to break that curse to the silence. Familiar's hanging around. He hasn't spawned his second familiar yet. It's on cooldown still. He keeps losing these familiars, which has been a huge issue. He's almost goes Aghanim Scepter to 200 gold off, so that's a 22 minute Aghanim Scepter on the Visage. Your 4 position hero is now playing like a 1 position. Felffie's called out the Stormbolt with no other way to lock him down. He doesn't actually have mana for Shapeshift, does he? Yo, never mind, he does. He turns around and silences, starts beating him down. He needs to use the spell before he's disarmed by the last word. Ultimate Flies Ancient Apparition doesn't hit anybody, but Mirana's able to right click down AO. It looks like Bristleback has fed all 3. Oh no, he's fed 2 kills. Visage fed the first blood. The second kill, sorry, over in the top lane. Aegis Demon's about to be reclaimed. Shapeshift wasn't dropped, so now he doesn't have enough mana to pop it. The thing with Shapeshift is at higher levels it decreases the cooldown, so similar to a Nagasiren Song. Level 1 Shapeshift, you want to be fairly conservative with. It does have a pretty short cooldown, but you don't want to pop it unless you absolutely need to. Level 2 and level 3 cooldown drops significantly, so it becomes an ability that you can throw whenever you want to. I believe at level 4, yeah, it should be up the majority of the time, as there's only a 22-second window where Shapeshift is down. That's the reason why Lycanthrope is such an annoying split pusher, as he can run in, push down your tower, Shapeshift, pop BKB, run the hell away. And there's nothing you can do to deal with them unless you have somebody like a Nagasiren who could throw out the net, or a Bane Elemental with the Fiend's Grip. Lycanthrope is a pretty annoying hero with that split pushing power. He's got a Necro Book 2 flying out to him, unless he went for damage items. Yeah, that's a Necronomicon level 2. Familiar scouted out by Silencer, who says hello, throws out a glaive. Really regretting the fact that he doesn't have any points up in the orb, as his orb actually enables him to deal a surprising amount of damage. Silencer, you wouldn't think is a hero that outputs a huge amount of DPS, but with the glaives and with the passive intelligence steal, especially if he's been involved in a few kills, he starts to hurt when the mid to late game comes around. But in this case, he actually hasn't stolen any intelligence. He's dying before anything big happens, or the hero dies outside of range, so he's not able to steal intelligence. It's a bit of a shame, as Silencer really is dependent on stealing intelligence to maintain relevancy in the mid to late stages of the game. In that sense, he's a fairly greedy support hero, just because, like in Nagasiren, he can transition into a pseudo DPS role, or he could go for those big utility items. He scales very well in the late stage of the game. Play pops the EDF, drops out the Dragon Tail. Piper's being popped to counteract the Ancient Apparition. Static Storm drops, but the kinetic field isn't dropped in time. Ghostbust's flying out, looks like it's going to hit too. It just catches Dragon Knight. Dragon Knight's taking a lot of damage. Arrow flies out, completely misses everybody. Starstorm throws out as well. Log actually beats down the familiars. There's 3 of them. Never mind. One is AO. He gets a right click on the tower, but then takes a fall to Sven. Limps back his Dream. He takes a fall to the Breed Fire. Road to 2.5k MMR. Doing a lot of work, hanging around for those Grave Chills. He did lose a lot of his familiars though. Arrows blocked by the familiar. And while all this is happening, Wolfman in the top lane, gonna take your racks. He swipes down Sven, takes the melee racks in the top lane. This is the reason why Lycanthrope is such a pain in the ass. If you lose a fight, you lose a racks. And in this case, he doesn't even have to be there to be able to win that fight and take those Raxes. Familiar takes another fall, so Visage feeding all 3 of his Familiars during that fight. Glimpse back for Stranger Danger. Kinetic Field didn't land in time. 4 stars Felffie forward, but Felffie without Shapeshift. It's just a German dude with claws. He can't chase you down fast enough. Wolverine ain't fast enough for that shit. Play Laugh Grow, still pushing in the mid lane. His EDF is down, so he doesn't have pushing power coming up from the corrosive attack on his EDF. Arrow flies out, actually hits Play Laugh Grow in the face. Jimmy Whispers being pretty on point with his arrow so far, actually moves out of range for the Starstorm. You have to have vision as well as a fairly close range for it. Felffie cops Last Word and the Ancient Apparition Ice Blast, but the level 1 Ice Blast isn't going to be enough to kill him off. You need 1 or 2 more right clicks if they really want to seal the deal. With that, Vladimir's offering, and Roshan just spawns. What a fantastic time for that to happen. Dire side are now going to move over, take Roshan, use that momentum to finish off the game, as already 24 minutes into the game. They've taken 1 lane of racks, as well as leaned the way in terms of fights. SMB were only able to take 2 kills during that entire engagement. 1 over in the Bristleback, and 1 over on the Disruptor. Never mind, there was only 1 kill. They were only just able to kill that Bristleback, so it wasn't the best
middle
fight for
tower
them.
is under attack.
Play Laugh broken and caught an Ice Blast in the face. But a level 1 Ice Blast isn't enough to cut the mustard. Lycanthrope going for the BKB now. He wants to feel secure as a DPS in these fights. Lycanthrope is one of those carry heroes that once he picks up a BKB, he doesn't necessarily have to build damage items, as his damage output, just with Howl, Feral Impulse, and Shapeshift, is already high enough. All he needs is a BKB so he can hit people without being stunned or controlled during those fights. He has an 18-second window to just run rampant and right-click people down. Abyssal Blade and Basher are great pickups on him, as it increases the efficiency of his time during his ultimate. Doesn't mean he has to waste time constantly moving and right-clicking. He just focuses on right-clicking. Heaven's Hellbird picked up on the Dragon Knight. Great pickup on him. Gives him a huge amount of EHP. Sage gives you 25 strength. Sorry, 20 strength, and that's about 380 HP. Not only that, it also gives you decent amount of damage, and that disarm is incredibly powerful against the Sven, who doesn't have a BKB yet. He's got actually pulled out with a Glint, Static Storm, Kinetic Field, 3 Familiars hitting on him. The damage coming up from the Familiars is enough to bring him down. Visage is playing like a carrier, road to 2.5k MMR, completely wreck and face. Sven has been completely shut down by Bristleback, wasn't able to accomplish anything at all. Boots of Travel picked up on Felffie. He's able to BOT his way into lane. Kind of surprising he went for treads, considering he wanted most likely to be going towards Boots of Travel to the late stages of the game. He doesn't have level 3 Shapeshift, so his ultimate... Actually, Familiars instantly dropped. Curse of the Silence dropped on Familiars. It doesn't work on creeps, only works on heroes. Ancient Apparition just picks up his Arcane Boot 26 minutes into the game. Arrow flies up with Jimmy Whispers, but it's instantly tanked by the creep. Creep tanks the arrow to the face for you. X-Master Spot as well as Torrent actually is a bit of miscommunication. Gracebow drops and hits nothing. Play Love Grow in the front line. Dream is disarmed, glimpsing back, Stranger Danger, Soul Assumption flies out. Dream takes the fall from Felffie, and then right click him down. One more Familiar, running away, lost 2 Familiars. Arrow flies up, going to hit Felffie in the face. Never mind, Felffie jukes it with his Matrix skills, just runs to the left. Play Love Grow in BKB mode, gets a double kill, one with the Soul Assumption coming up from the Visage, one with the Breathe Fire, as well as the AoE damage coming up from his EDF2. And GG well played, called 27 minutes into the game. Felffie and friends take a commanding Game 1 victory at 4 for 16. Not the most action-packed game, but very push-heavy. And so we'll be right back with game number 2. Stay tuned, I'll be back in about 3-4 minutes. Just going to take a quick break, restart the stream once the draft starts for game number 2.